Hey, my friends, we need to talk about something that not enough people are saying out loud right now, because if your classroom feels like it's in survival mode, if you're constantly stopping instruction, if you're managing behavior more than you feel like you're actually teaching, you're not imagining it, and you're definitely not alone. Today's video is a heavy one, but it's also an important one because we're going to talk about what's actually happening inside classrooms right now and how you can protect yourself, your students, and your classroom, even inside a system that isn't giving you the support that you need. Now, I want to say this right up front. This is not about blaming children. This is not about attacking teachers. And this is not about demonizing administrators. This is about talking about reality and what's actually happening in classrooms everywhere, and supporting teachers who are trying to do an impossible job inside a completely overwhelmed system. So here's what I'm hearing over and over again from teachers. Classrooms are in survival mode. And when classrooms live in survival mode long enough, everyone's nervous system starts to pay the price, right? The adults, the students, everyone. And there's a conversation happening online right now that sounds kind of like this, like dysregulated children want to learn. We need systemic change. The system is outdated, right? And listen, those things, they aren't wrong, but they're incomplete, because here's the part that's missing. Wanting to learn is not the same as being regulated enough to access learning. Trauma-informed does not mean unlimited tolerance of unsafe behavior. And inclusion does not mean one adult absorbing unlimited needs in a classroom of 25 or more students. One of the teachers I work with wrote to me, because this is what it actually looks like in real life. She said, "My class was in survival mode. I constantly had to stop instruction, and I felt helpless." Instruction wasn't slowed, right? It wasn't just adjusted. It had stopped entirely. Another teacher shared that she developed Bell's palsy from the stress. Another teacher said she evacuates her classroom multiple times a day. And this one line just stayed with me. She said, "Some of my students are developing PTSD from the outbreaks of one child." Right? Just take that in for a second. That's not inclusion. That's crisis management. And here's what nobody's actually hearing at the decision maker level, even though teachers are screaming it every single day. Inclusion without support isn't working. Not because teachers don't care, not because they aren't good at their job, but because teachers are being asked to be the entire system. And when there aren't enough supports, and when wait lists are like months or years long, and staff are stretched across entire buildings, what happens is actually predictable, right? Because that is not sustainable. Instruction stops, safety erodes for everyone, teachers burn out, they eventually leave, and none of that is humane, none of that is fair, and none of that is what teachers actually signed up for. Now, here's where I want to shift this, because yes, we need systemic change, but you still have to walk into your classroom tomorrow. So let's talk about what you can control. And there are 5 parts of this. So I want you to write this down. First, I want you to start thinking in terms of, number 1, safety first thinking. And here's what I mean by that. You are not failing when you intervene early. You are preventing escalation. So I want you to start asking yourself, is instruction possible right now? Is anyone unsafe? Am I regulating or am I absorbing? So here's what I mean by that. When a student starts to escalate, I want you to just pause just for a moment and ask yourself, is instruction still even possible right now? And if the answer is no, stop trying to push the lesson forward. This is where so many teachers get stuck. We try to keep teaching while managing behavior, while regulating a student, and now everyone is dysregulated, including you. So instead, I want you to shift your goal. The goal is no longer instruction, which is crazy because we're in a classroom, right? But the goal is no longer instruction. The goal is stabilization. Okay, now you get to make a decision. Can I contain this safely in the room? Or do I need to actually clear space? And when I say clear space, I don't mean clear the whole class right away. So when we think of containment, we can think of moving closer, lowering our voice, giving one clear direction, and reducing stimulation, right? So for example, you can say to a student, your body needs a break. Come sit here, right? So we can bring them closer instead of pushing them away. Now, if you decide though that you need to clear because it's clearly a dangerous situation, that the student has thrown a desk or become a harm to someone else, that means calling for support. Move the student, which is preferred, right? If the student can get moved, you can't touch them, right? But you can ask them to move. Or if you need to, this is what we hear all the time, move the class briefly, right? I really hate that, but this is where we are. Here's the key shift though. You're not waiting until it gets worse to act. You're acting in the first signs of escalation. And then just give one direction, not 5. And this is the thing, like a lot of teachers, myself included, when things escalate, we often start explaining and reasoning and negotiating and adding more language, and we speed up, and it actually fuels the escalation. So instead, one direction, calm voice, and then stop talking. So for example, we just say, sit down, we'll talk in a minute, and then just pause. Like no back and forth, no debate. And ask yourself, am I regulating or am I absorbing? Because this is the most important one. Here's what starts to happen. The student escalates and our body, right? Your body starts escalating with them. Your voice tightens, your heart rate goes up, and you start reacting instead of responding because you're in survival mode, right? You're in stress mode. And that's what I mean by absorbing. So our job in that moment is to slow ourselves down first, even if everything in you wants to speed up, because a regulated adult is exactly what brings the room back down, right? And then finally, only start teaching again when it's actually possible, once things are calm. Then you can return to instruction, but not before. And this is where you get your power back, right? Because instead of feeling like I lost control of my class, you can say, I made a decision that protected everyone. Because what's happening in classrooms right now is teachers are trying to do all 3 at once. We're trying to teach because we're feeling the pressure of getting the lessons taught, right? We're trying to manage behavior and we're trying to regulate students. And that's not sustainable for one human being, especially all at once. Teaching can wait a few minutes. Safety cannot, right? And then the second thing I want to talk about is documentation. And I know we're so tired of being told to document, but the reality is that documentation means protection, right? Documentation is not about labeling kids. It's not about creating extra work for you, even though I know it is extra work. It's about naming reality in a way that will protect you, right? So instead of vague things like this was a hard day, I want you to write down very specifically, like for example, instruction stopped for 23 minutes, peers evacuated, staff support required, right? Those kinds of facts are going to protect you. And they also protect your students, especially from that PTSD we talked about. And the third piece of this is boundaries. If you're multitasking, please come back to me because I really want you to hear this. Boundaries are trauma informed. And this one's so important, right? There is a misconception right now that trauma informed somehow translates to no limits. And that's hurting not only you as teachers, but our students. Because when escalation leads to removal of demands and control of the space, which is happening when you remove the whole class and the student now has control of the space, and rewards, the nervous system starts to learn that escalation works. And that leads to what? More escalation, not less, right? Clear, predictable boundaries are what actually create safety, which leads me to the fourth piece of this, and that's dignity for all students. We talk a lot about protecting dignity for one child, but dignity belongs to all students. It should never mean 25 or more students losing instruction. It should never mean a teacher living in hypervigilance, and it absolutely should not mean unsafe behavior being minimized. That's not equity. That's imbalance. And finally, number 5, your nervous system matters. You're not going to survive in this career if we don't pay attention to supporting you. If your body feels like it's constantly on edge, that's not weakness, that is information. And regulated classrooms require regulated adults. And you can't pour from an empty, overwhelmed system. Now listen, we absolutely need better funding. We absolutely need more support staff, better, faster identification, smaller class sizes. But we can't wait for the entire system to change while sacrificing yourself in the meantime, right? Advocacy does not mean martyrdom. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, finally someone said it out loud, I want you to hear this. You are not failing. You're responding to a very real reality in classrooms with care and with courage. And if your classroom feels like it's constantly on edge, if instruction keeps getting interrupted, if you're just trying to hold everything together, I want to invite you to something I created for you. It's a free class called How to Regain Control of Your Classroom in 5 days or less, where we're going to talk about how to prevent challenging behaviors from derailing your entire day, even if you feel like you've tried everything, you don't have admin support, and their parents just don't care. This is not about perfection. It's about creating structure, safety, and predictability in the classroom that you actually have right now. You can save your seat below, and whether you join me or not, I'm really glad you're here. And if you liked this video, please be sure to hit that like button so I know that this resonated with you. And if you would like more help on this topic or another topic, comment below to let me know. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. And until next time, remember, just because you're a beginning or experienced elementary teacher, there is no need for you to struggle. Bye for now.